What's his first song?
His first song for today is Deaf Pony with the song Big Small Town. And if you watch this, we have Bang, and we actually have it at the bottom.
I like your artwork, by the way. It's very nice.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very...
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
That's my professional opinion.
Deafening sounds of sleep that I'll never know, and you catch me begging for the words you hold.
I actually really like that.
Okay, so from the comments that are coming in on the live stream, some people saying that banger, which means good. Bit of reverb needed on the voice to give it a bit of space. It's a good song. I don't like the vocals nor the lyrics. 6 out of 10, 7. I like the panning on the guitars. The instrumental is really good. Okay, cool. So that's the verdict from the chat.
I think I would agree with most of that. I think the instrumental was a little bit better than the vocals. I thought the singer was a bit too pronouncey with his words. He was a bit too over the top with how he enunciated his words from time to time. However, the instrumental I really liked. The guitar sound was good. It contrasted really well with the distortion in the chorus and the clean elsewhere. I thought the vocals were actually a little bit loud as well. So if they were brought down a bit and added a bit of reverb, I think that probably would help. I think the drums could also have done with being a bit louder. I really like the bass line in the verses. Like, it was doing like a fifth thing, like a do-do-do-do-do-do-do, something like that. That felt really full. It didn't feel like it was lacking. And the layering in it was good as well. It was like 2 bars of bass and then a bit of guitar comes in. And the texture was nice. It evolved.
Yeah. Is that all from you?
Yes, it is.
What I would say, my first thing is with the mix, which obviously I don't know whether you have done the mix yourself or whether you got the mix done. I would say in the bigger parts of the song, it felt like maybe the bass needed to be a bit louder, or whether the bass needed a bit more impact, or I don't know. There was something there that was like, oh, the guitars are in, but it feels as though the bass should be up there too, and it wasn't. For me, it was. I don't know if this is the same for everyone else, but the vocal was quite hard to understand. Like it was like that kind of, not exactly that, but you get what
you said, it was the opposite of mumbling.
Yeah, yeah, odd. The extra guitar bit that comes in, which we just looked at each other and went, "Is that a marimba?" It sounded like a xylophone. It sounded
kind of synthy, didn't it?
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
It reminded me of the song "Sweet Disposition" by Temper Trap with like the delayed guitar. It sounded quite like that.
Yeah, that was cool. Like that. Put that in all of your songs, and you will make millions. No, you won't, but well, you might. It was good. I like it. So you were building up in the bridge, and then you hit into the last chorus. For me, that was a little bit sloppy on the impact. I would get that perfectly tight, because that is the only point in the song where you have to be perfect.
I suppose that's the most important part of the song, and it's the crescendo.
Yeah, especially. It's even more important if you are as loose as what you were on that impact, because it loses its entire point, because it's not like blah, it's and then I don't know. Yeah, it needs that kind of perfect on point thing, which it didn't have. Everything else, timing wise, on everything else, I couldn't fault it in any way, but that was the one point where it definitely needed it. For the last chorus, I believe you looped the chorus twice at the end, and for the second time you added an extra guitar part. I will always praise that, because I think it is the one way of making choruses stay interesting throughout a song, especially if you're playing it 3 or 4 times throughout a song. So, that's pretty standard practice. But you did it, and it was good. It is an artist called Teacup Universe with a song called Dear Lily.
I saw walking on the floor, she's all I ever asked, like for the cutest girl I've ever seen. She makes my makes me deep into shy talk. Yeah, I'm the fool, the world's about me, it's so cool. I wanna ask her out sometime, am I the only one in line? I really hope I am. I'm not the most outgoing man, would you please let me try to be your love of life, your best friend, your fairy tale with happy end, my dear.
The first thing that cropped into my mind as soon as like the song started was that clean guitar sounds really raw. It sounds like unmixed. The easy way to solve that would be probably a little bit of reverb, or maybe even delay with the thing that you're playing. Delay would probably work quite nicely on it. Overall, I feel as though the vocals and the guitar were too loud in the mix. Bringing up the drums and bringing up the bass would benefit the entire song a lot, because there were certain bits where the bass needed to be filling the area that the guitar wasn't, and it wasn't there. And drums being arguably loudest in the mix is generally quite a good practice anyway, rather than it being the quietest in the mix, which it currently is. With it being rhythmic, works quite well to have it slightly louder than the other instruments. The only other criticism that I have is that the vocal in the verses tied pretty much perfectly to the guitar in terms of rhythm, what it was doing.
That was my first point as well.
Yeah, so that's always been a thing for me, that it's a sign of the song has been written instrumentally and the guitar's doing something kind of syncopated or whatever. So when the vocalist or singer, whatever, comes to put their bit on top, because the guitar's doing something a little bit kind of complex or whatever, they just do that rather than put something else. I don't quite get the mentality behind it, but we did it when we first started in the band.
For me, I think it's not laziness, but it's not really knowing what else to do.
Yeah. The solution that I would probably go for there is that if the guitar is doing something quite syncopated and quite choppy, do the opposite with the vocal and maybe have it so that it's kind of on beat at almost all times and it is flowing more than it is being choppy like what the guitar is. There are many ways that you could resolve that. You might not even see it as a problem, so it doesn't really matter. Over to Joe.
Well, the only things that I really have to add to that is, well, back in school, Lenny and I's first band, we recorded a song in the recording studio of the music department, and I was playing bass at the time, and the way we recorded it, we just plugged it into, I think you just plugged it into the mixing board or something. There was
that sounds about right, yeah.
No amplification, no EQ, nothing on it. It was like raw, and it sounded like a popcorn machine popping, and that bass in that song reminded me of that. I think it feels like it hasn't really had much done to it. It's far too raw, and because the guitars and the vocals are too loud in the mix, it basically may as well not even be there. It's like, can't even hear it.
Yeah.
There was a few bits in the intro where your timing was a little bit off, only a little bit, but it was still very noticeable. And however, I did like the stabs at the end of the bridge that you did. You did like a duh, 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 and it was very tight for that one little bit, which I liked.
Yeah, I would say that bit, because they did like on beat, and then to eighths if they were currently doing quarters. I would say that it would probably be better not having that and having the duh, 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 duh impact rather than duh, 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 duh impact, because then it kind of its way into the thing. That's minor criticism. Some of the things coming through on the comments for this song are not too keen on the vocals. It's a little bit repetitive. I feel as though the vocals are a little bit monotone and repetitive. I like the fusion of punk vocals and funk guitar. 4 out of 10, not for me. And then someone said that people like the Arctic Monkeys do that though, and that was about one of the things that one of us two have said, and I don't know which because it came through like a minute ago.
Yeah, I agree with the repetitive vocals as well.
Yeah.
The line "My dear" was said more than 50% of the song.
Yeah. Thank you for submitting a song, and we will crack on with the next one. So the next song is The Dead Gentleman with Catacombs.
When the sun was down, leather jacket clad, we wore a crown, the king and queen of London town. breath is visible, but
I'm going to be honest, that track actually surprised me quite considerably, I think. The structure for this song was totally odd and different, and you had like 12,000 intros, and then did a verse, and then did a chorus.
Which isn't really a chorus because it wasn't repeated.
No, yeah, I think it's only once, because then do they do riff section again, and then verse, and then
No,
all the bridges.
It was like all the intros, verse, chorus, all the riffs again,
Yeah.
and then the quiet bridge, then a heavy bridge, and then all the riffs again.
Yeah, okay. Right, okay, so what would have been the chorus? So that second vocal part, in my opinion, was the weakest part of the entire song. I think the verse part, if you can call it a verse part, before it was really good. The vocal, I think, was really good. In the chorus part, less so. All the intros that you did, normally I would be like, too many. This is too many intros, but I don't think it didn't work. I think it did work, and the only criticism I have of it is that maybe there were too many repetitions, especially when the riff section keeps getting repeated. Like the middle section where the riff section gets repeated, I feel as though it was slightly too long, probably double too long. And then the same again in the outro, where the riff plays again. I think it was twice as long as it should have been. That little stabby bit that you do, like you do the riff section, and then sometimes after it, you do a like stabby thing, which sounds really grungy and dirty and horrible. Like it. I really like that sound. I think that's it for me. Overall, I think the track was pretty cool, and it surprised me because I was expecting just standard hard rock verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and it not to do anything different. And structurally, you did a lot different, and that was actually quite refreshing. Even if the style of music that you were doing wasn't anything overly original, what you were doing outside of just the sound made it sound quite original.
I think the structure overall worked. However, you had your big million intro section, and I believe that entire thing was played 3 times throughout the song. That's far too much. However, in the very, very first bit of the initial intro, it went from like a doom metal-y sounding riff into like in one of the really fast riffs. That worked really well. Yeah. That should have stayed as it was, and then come in with that heavy riff and then the vocals straight away. I like that it didn't go verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, etc. But I thought it could have done with another vocal part towards the end.
Yeah, probably, yeah. The bridge part maybe, like when it died down properly. Vocal there, and then it impacts. Maybe.
Yeah. The bridge part, I believe there was a bridge part that came in at around the 4:20 mark. That was really nice. There was a really nice heavy riff there that I liked. Yeah, the chorus bit that came in really didn't have as much impact as I think it should have. It was a bit weak, in my opinion. I thought the vocal style kind of worked. I can kind of see why a lot of people are comparing it to Black Sabbath, because the vocal effect that you had on was kind of similar to a lot of stuff that Ozzy Osbourne has used in the past. Overall, I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, some notes
bit repetitive, and it was kind of like you came up with a load of really cool riff ideas, chopped them all up and put them together, and just played that all the time, and it felt a little bit much.
Some notes from the comments are, kind of sounds like Black Sabbath, as Joe mentioned. Not a fan of the repetitive guitars, and the drums need to be louder. I like that the bass does the same riff as the lead guitar. The bridge section isn't great. Okay. Would you agree or disagree with any of those?
I think the died down bridge section lasted a little too long, in my opinion.
I think sometimes that's on purpose, though, because it doesn't have the impact when it comes back in if it's only been played for 3 bars, for example.
No, but I think if they kept it at the same length and added vocals, that would have improved the song.
Yeah, it maybe felt too long because nothing else happened throughout it. Okay, yeah, that's a solid argument. Right, the next song. So this is a song by an artist called Cold Out, and the song is called High Tides.
You smile, wear sorrow on your face. She shred these coastlines long and all chased. Sand painted feet now gone in your trace. October's been rough,
apparently that was... I was just about to say, apparently that's it, but there's loads of time left on the track. That was what was left. Okay, I'll just flick over to the other screen. And
shall we begin with our disclaimer?
Yeah, do you want to do this disclaimer
Yeah,
this
so
time?
for those of you who don't know, Lenny and I used to be in a pop punk band. We loved it and it was all we listened to and played for about 5 years. Because of that, we do have a slightly warped view of this genre. But I think that we believe that pop punk is a very, very tired genre, and the people who are still doing it are just writing the same songs over and over again, and it's
a genre that's almost stopped evolving completely.
Yeah, it's like, I'm pretty sure we wrote songs back in the day that sounded very, very similar to that. That being said, despite the fact that it's from a genre that I personally believe to be dead, there wasn't really anything wrong with it, I think. Apart from the fact that the outro was a little bit too long. It probably should have ended when the high guitar melody came in instead of where it did. I didn't think it needed that little bit of studio banter bit on the end, because in my opinion, no one ever needs that, because it's just a little bit...
It's one of those things that, to the artist, seems really cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's funny, because that was the thing that actually happened. We should just keep that in the thing. But to everyone else, they weren't there for that.
They're not in on the inside joke. We used to do it a lot. We used to do inside jokes on stage. We used to add in studio banter like that, and we thought it was great, but it wasn't.
No. And it's definitely a bad idea if you're wanting to build an audience that really... Or at least build a new audience. If you've already got an audience, then they might kind of get it. But for new people turning up, they might feel as though they're not in on the thing, and therefore they just feel less a part of it.
I agree. The fact that the actual last note of the song, it was very bang. It was nice.
Yeah.
I liked that.
Good ending.
I thought the drums sounded a bit weak. I thought the snare in particular sounded really, really weak.
Needed some reverb on it or something.
Something. A bit more high mids or something. It was just like... it was like dropping a bit of uncooked pasta on the floor.
Right, okay.
But I mean, apart from our personal misgivings about the genre and those few things, there wasn't really anything wrong with it. If you have an audience that still digs pop punk after all these years, then fair play. It was a good pop punk song.
Yeah. I got the note about the snare. One thing, which is more of a criticism of pop punk in general rather than just you as an artist, but there's very little you can do with sections. There's very little that you can do to say, okay, so we're going to have a bridge here, what we're going to do for the bridge. If you're a pop punk artist, you've got like 3 options and that's it. There's just anything else that you could do just doesn't sound like pop punk and therefore wouldn't be right to do. So it's definitely more of a criticism of thing, but of pop punk in general. But for this track, I felt like it was just ticking the check boxes.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got to have one of those sections, one of those sections.
It's like you'd written out a criteria for what this song needed to be, and you just kind of filled it in.
Which obviously you haven't. That's just the way that you write songs, and it's the artists that you like all write songs like that. So it kind of makes sense. But for me, it's something I've heard too many times, I think. My other bit of criticism, which no one has mentioned, no one in the comments, nor Joe, is that there's a section in the song that has like a dueling vocal, like 2 vocals going on. I like what you're going for, but I don't think it works as well as I'd want it to. I think that second vocal needs to do something that works a tad better with what the lead vocal is doing. There's one bit where the 2 harmonise and then go do their separate things. I think that bit's really cool. It's the other bits that I would say, I don't know, they don't do it for me. Some notes from the Twitch stream. Sounds like a bad copy of Tom DeLonge. Sadly, there are a lot of artists inside pop punk that adopt that accent, whether...
Us included.
Yes, us included. So, a lot of these criticisms is just like us critiquing ourselves 5 years ago. So, we don't mean to sound harsh, but I guess we're saying it to ourselves as well.
It's funny, pop punk is the only genre that specifically goes out of the way to say that it isn't dead. But I think it is the only genre that is dead. But that's just my opinion. It's just me.
The other thing close to that is like maybe punk itself. But like, punk's more of a an addition, a flavour now, rather than a genre itself.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably make a video on that at some point, because I think that what punk has become is kind of a cool thing, and no other genres become that.
It's not a dish anymore, it's a spice.
Yeah. So people just used to just scoop up that cinnamon and put it in their mouths. If that's how you want to describe punk. I meant the abrupt ending. So yeah, someone said that the ending was really nice, not meaning the studio band to the actual final note. I like the joke at the end. It's a silly ending to a silly fun song. I mean, yeah, maybe, but I think for the majority of people listening to music, they aren't looking for a silly fun song, and probably wouldn't see that song as a silly fun song, and therefore would be turned off from that ending.
I think it's a bit of a cliche to say, but pop punk in general is like Marmite. I think you either really like it or you really don't like it. I don't think there is much in between with it.
Yeah.
Which is why the people who like it defend it with a passion,
Yeah.
and the people who don't like it just, it's not for them.
Just ignore it completely. And that's probably why, like, along with metal, pop punk has now got its own festivals. Like, there are festivals that are just like pop punk festivals, as metal does. Every other genre kind of shares festivals. They don't, probably because they're quite an acquired taste. Sorry. I should explain why I laugh. I shouldn't just laugh. Yeah, we've mentioned three individual times food.
It's good for metaphors.
Dropping pasta, cinnamon, and Marmite. So welcome to the cook lab, the chef lab, the
kitchen.
The kitchen. Right, we're gonna move on to the next song, and the next song is 20 milligrams or 20 mg by Bruise Pristine. I think that's done. Yeah, okay. So that was Bruise Pristine 20 mg. Some of the things coming through on the Twitch chat are that it sounds kind of like Placebo, slightly too simple, which makes it a little bit boring. Someone said that the delay on the vocals isn't for them, but I was actually going to say that I actually quite like the affected vocals. If anything, I would say that the parts of the song that aren't affected, so like the bass and the clean guitar, I would say put something on them to wetten them up a bit, because that would actually make the entire sound of the song kind of shoegazy, for lack of a better phrase, rather than what it currently does, which is like this grunge thing with really delayed vocals and wet drums with really dry bass and some dry guitar. I don't particularly like the mix of the two. I would prefer everything to either be quite clean or everything to be really wet, but whatever. The verses, and the intro kind of comes into that, the verses are far too long in my opinion. Really, really, really long. And when you get halfway through the verse, it feels like, okay, this should have finished now, and then it goes for twice as long. That definitely, in my opinion, kills the pacing of the track. I would also say that when the chorus comes in, it's very, 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 very loud. Joe nearly had a heart attack over here. And I don't know whether the track is mastered. If the track isn't mastered, in theory mastering would solve that problem, but either way, that is a far too big of a jump from the verse volume to the chorus volume, because a lot of people will listen to the verse, turn the volume up because it's quite quiet, and then as soon as the chorus comes in, they're going to be deafened. Rather than the impact that you want, it will actually be someone going rather than being like, oh yeah, heavy. The only other thing that I want to say is that for the chorus, I would change up the strumming pattern somewhat. I would probably make that entire section half-time rather than what you did have, because it doesn't have that big oomph that I think you were going for, and I think taking it half-time and having a strumming pattern that reflects that half-time beat would solve that problem. Over to Joe.
That song shocked me. as you may have noticed when the guitars came in the chorus, I had a bit of a heart attack and it wasn't because I thought the guitars were too loud. But
was it not?
No. When this song was starting, I didn't assume automatically that it was going to be a rock song.
Ah, right, okay.
I've been listening to a band recently. They're quite an old band called Goldfrapp. I think you know them, don't they, Lenny?
I've heard of
They
them. I don't know
do
if I know
like
them.
James Bond music style.
I am aware
stuff.
of Goldfrapp, yeah.
They have vocals that are very similar to that. They have bass lines that are very similar to that. They have lots of spacious synths, and it's very classy sounding. For some reason, I just assumed that's what that song was going to be. I think the fact that you led in with the delayed vocals and the bass and the drums misled me a little bit, which is why I was so shocked when the guitars came in. I thought the bass was very, very, very raw. It had like no effects on it at all. The same what we said earlier about the other song where it had a really, really clean bass. Don't like that very much. I thought it was a bit too quiet as well because that came in first, and then the drums and the vocals came in at the same time, and they were far too loud. No, they weren't too loud. The bass was just too quiet. Yeah. I think the snare could do some reverb. Small point. I like the delay effect on the vocals. I think it gets a bit tiring by the end of the song, but I think that comes down to the fact that yes, the verses are far too long. There was a point, I think it was the exact 1 minute mark, it felt like something else should have come in, you should have layered something else onto it, or it should have changed a little bit. I don't think the sound of the guitar goes with the rest of the song. I think it's a little bit too scratchy. It sounds like really rough and ready. It sounds like it's trying to be one style of song, and then the delayed vocals are like they're trying to be another style of song, which kind of, again, is a little bit misleading. I think you've written two songs in different styles and you've put them together, and it's created this weird mishmash of a song that, I don't know, it sort of works in parts.
See, the way I see it is I see it like what Nirvana used to do, where they had the sections where it was clean guitar, him being quite quiet, and then it just impacts with massiveness. I think that's kind of the thing they're going for. I presume Placebo do similar things. I've not heard enough of Placebo to say whether or not that's the case, but I would guess that was what they were going for, that kind of grunge, really quiet section, really loud section.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's maybe just because I've been listening to Goldfrapp quite a lot that I assumed it was going to be like that, and if it had been like that, I think I would have really liked it because the bass line was really good. I really liked the bass line.
Yeah.
But
so that pretty much wraps up episode 13 of the reviews. Thank you very much for watching. On the screen now there are two links. One is to our best of playlist, one is to the current playlist that you could watch more videos from. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.